Hello, this is Dan Baldwin, and we're to our fourth shootout presenter, Eugene Laykhtman of Vocal IP Networx. Eugene, thanks for sharing your information with us today. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dan, and good day, everyone. Today I will be presenting Vocal IP Networx as a company and a solution that Vocal IP Networx was able to put together for bring your own bandwidth customers and opportunities. So firstly, let me go ahead and explain who Vocal IP Networx is and what does Vocal IP Networx do. Well, Vocal IP Networx was founded in 2004. We are an internet services provider and have been from the very first day of our existence. We are also IP telephony services provider. We are broadcast based and have a national presence and geographically distributed voice and data infrastructure. We are also a managed services provider. And in this presentation for the managed services aspect, the one that's most important, we'll be discussing ISNMP monitoring and management system, which oftentimes takes participation in creating and managing the bring your own bandwidth type solution and providing voice services over bring your own bandwidth solution. So Vocal IP Networx was founded by Advanced Technologies Group in 2004. Advanced Technology Group is a LAN and WAN integration company that was in existence since 1994. Advanced Technologies carries from also the first day from the beginning sales engineering resources and expertise in the network layer, Cisco, Juniper, Checkpoint, NetSpring, and many of other network appliance certifications that Advanced Technologies carries. What's important here is that by operating together, Vocal IP Networx and Advanced Technology is able to bring to the table a sizable amount of sales engineering resources. Advanced Technologies engineers are also assisting Vocal IP Networx provisioning specialists and the solution engineers in order to develop and bring to customer the best designed technical services and the voice over IP. One of the important points is that Advanced Technologies has been in carrier subcontracting business since 2001. Advanced Technologies performed voice over IP installations for the carriers like Corvad, Quest, XO, and others. We were the guys that showed up at the customer's location and on behalf of our carriers. We would either, wear carrier T-shirts, or we would be ourselves deploying Corvad and Quest solutions. So over the years of doing this for the carriers, our technicians and project managers acquired a significant expertise into all existing on the field solution of the voice over IP and multitude of the scenarios in which voice over IP gets delivered to the customer. We also had a benefit of observing firsthand and learning all the mistakes that were made in the marketplace by others, and we were challenged with fixing those mistakes and making the services work to the best that it was possible. Many of such solutions had fallen within bring your own bandwidth scenario, which is why we think we're very well suited to provide these services today. A little bit to the Vocal IP infrastructure. As I mentioned before, distributed network and a voice over IP hardware creates a redundant and geographically diverse environment. In cases where the customer is serviced or provided services, voice over IP services, over the bandwidth that is passing through the internet, our multiple presence allows us to point customers' voice traffic to the nearest by network proximity, the closest point, the closest gateway. By this, we are minimizing the latency and ultimately improving the quality of service to the customer. Presence of multiple session border controllers and 2 broadcast switches allows us to also easily fail over, God forbid, in such an unlikely event, that one of our session border controllers or service to be down or inaccessible. Okay. In bring your own bandwidth opportunity, and considering we have done a very large number of deployments for the others and for ourselves, we are very focused on the initial engagement and on a discovery process. We see the discovery process to be one of the crucial elements of finding out how the customer is built today, what his LAN environment looks like today, which would ultimately allow us to provision their services better. Because of our very rich sales engineering resources, in just about every sale, the sales engineer gets involved together with an account manager when preparing a solution for the customer. In bring your own bandwidth type solutions, we have sales engineers to be particularly attentive in the phases of information collection, as we have to reveal all the small details and all the particulars about customer setup in order to properly engineer him. So the items that are most relevant, as we see to be most relevant, and those that we ask the questions right up front in a very original sales process, whether we're working through the agent or speaking directly to the customer, is we are trying to find out the make, model, and the firmware releases for the customer LAN-based switches, firewall, and the router. In addition to this, we also would like to collect as much information as possible on the current bandwidth that's installed, on the current provider, and also learn where possible the bandwidth usage of the customer. Since in the case of bring your own bandwidth, our voice over IP services would need to be installed over the existing pipe and existing internet access, we would definitely have to make sure that that access is not maximized and there is available bandwidth for additional services. So oftentimes when we do attempt to collect such information during the sales process, and especially in agent-driven sales, we don't get a chance to collect all the information right away. Either the person speaking with us does not know it, and they, at this point, are not willing to tell us what their LAN consists of yet. Well, we would like the sales process to go forward as smooth as possible. So what we commonly do in such cases is we generate a budgetary quote, which would provide a very standard configuration for the customer. We do stipulate to the customer or an agent at that time that in order for this quote to be finalized, we would like to actually learn all the particulars and all those questions that perhaps were not answered at the beginning. In order to do that, we can either, in methods of information collection rather, could be either by speaking with an IT person at the customer site, speaking with their consultant, speaking with a person like an IT, like an office manager perhaps, that would have a knowledge or at least would have most of the information necessary for us to move forward. Well, what happens at the end in such cases where information is not provided to us, but nevertheless we do have to, furnish the quote and then perhaps sharpen the quote in order to even arrive to customer site and then even in order to be, to be able to survey it. Well, here's our management tools comes very handy. We operate multiple SNMP management systems, and what they like to do is in order to, let's say, help customers to determine how much bandwidth is being used and whether this is additional bandwidth available for our services, we offer the customer to connect for diagnostic reasons, diagnostic purposes only, our monitoring system to their switch or router or firewall. Now, we would like to connect them to the devices with a public IP addresses. It simply, simplifies our installation. Also, in addition to just management of customer software, we are able to test the quality of voice packets reaching our network from the customer prem if we send to the customer a small device that gets connected to the customer's LAN, customer's network, and sends RTP stream, which is a voice stream, and the SIP communication toward a gateway. We have equipment installed at each of our, session border controllers and each of our points of presence, which would collect the jitter and the latency information from such device, which would right away allow us to test the network proximity and allow us to determine whether the services and the bring your own bandwidth existing with the customer would be sufficient for us to install the voice services, or whether the bandwidth would need to be somehow modified, upgraded, or maybe QoS techniques would need to be applied. Now, SIP testing probes throughout the sales process, we found them to be very welcomed by the customers, and we actually found that offering this oftentimes brings us a lot of success as the customer gets reassured that, the quality of the service has been tested before the service is actually deployed. Well, in the next slide, I would like to speak about 3 types of bring your own bandwidth scenarios that we are identified. And these are 3 types of the solutions that we have to address these scenarios. So first of them would be a scenario where a customer would have an existing MPLS cloud. This would apply to the enterprise customers or multi-location organizations that, obviously would engage in over the course of the current service term with an existing carrier. Well, Vocal IP Networx will gladly accept and will gladly allow the existing carrier to extend their MPLS circuit to us, and this way we can interject the voice into the MPLS cloud. I will speak about this a little bit later on in this presentation. Now, in case of a pure dedicated internet access existing at the customer premise, such as the majority of the situations in the bring your own bandwidth scenario, we break it down into two distinct possibilities. One, where the customer has in place and already owns an equipment which is, number one, managed, number two is QoS capable, which means that equipment such as perhaps Cisco, Atran, or most of the major brands with a contemporary firmware release would already be capable of prioritizing voice packets through and improving and, in fact, delivering good quality of voice if properly configured. So in such cases, we request from the customer to get access to the devices, and providing that there's no conflict with an internal IT people or a consultant, or if there is, we can always work with an internal IT person or consultant where we could supply a necessary requirement for the QoS configuration where the consultant will be able to enter it himself. Well, this covers only partially the bring your own bandwidth. The majority of the solutions are really addressed where the circuit is completely unmanaged and where the switch, firewall, and the router of the customer is either not accessible by us, which means we would not have passwords to it, it could be managed by different carriers, or that equipment would simply not carry enough intelligence to be managed or to have QoS configuration running on it. Well, we'll discuss options for that third scenario a little bit later on. We do provide a proprietary device to address it, and I will speak in it in detail in the next slide. So let's first cover in just a little bit greater detail how the scenario works with, apologies about it, how the solution works with an existing MPLS cloud. As you see here, I'm showing in blue a circuit that from the existing customer cloud, a carrier on customer's request may extend to Vocal. The slide is showing two such circuits, simply pointing to the fact that since Vocal has East and West Coast data centers, in order to accomplish a lesser latency for distributed enterprises, it would perhaps be to the best benefits of the customer to drive two circuits to the Vocal POPs, one to the East Coast POP, one to the West Coast POP. Not only that they would work as a failover to one another, but also the locations on the West Coast would get directly pointed to the West Coast infrastructure, and East Coast locations to the East Coast, minimizing the latency and again improving the quality of service. Okay, the benefits of the solution and the benefits of us doing business in such a way. First of all, since we do not insist on a proprietary circuit provider, we consider ourselves to be flexible, and we would interconnect in any existing carrier. Vocal IP owns and manages its equipment. However, it is network agnostic as long as the customer is comfortable with a carrier providing this MPLS. The carrier is also recommended to configure a class of service, which is the similar technique to quality of service, throughout its MPLS cloud to accommodate now voice over IP traffic heading toward vocal gateways. Okay, now, Vocal is present in a number of cross-connect points and in carrier hotels such as 111 8th Avenue, 1 Wilshire. In New York, we're also at 60 Hudson. We are at Switchnet in Vegas. We also have equipment at 165 Halsey in New York. So with this, I'm simply making a point that we are easy people to cross-connect with. We could always either drive a circuit to a cross-connect point, or we would already exist at a cross-connect point, making it very easy and inexpensive for an existing network to be extended to us. The easiness of deployments. Well, Vocal manages all of its deployments, including with the on-site installation. So an enterprise customer, signing us up will maintain their bandwidth, does not need to get much involved with the IP provisioning or any of the techniques. Vocal IP would actually communicate with an existing carrier, collect all the IP information, collect all the customer information, and provide all the project management needed in order to deploy this. Okay, so let me move to bring your own bandwidth opportunities with a dedicated internet access. And here we're going to consider and take a look at a solution that we have in place where the customer owns the equipment that may be configured and is accessible, by us and by our technicians. Well, our recommendation would be to keep the solution as cost-effective for the customer, and of course, if we do find the equipment is capable of all these techniques, our most interest is to keep the equipment in place. We do, however, come forward with a recommendation to the customer that sometimes to change a network layout by using his existing device. And in this slide, I'm showing you one of the possibilities for a recommended layout where all three devices, such as switch, firewall, and a router, are managed. This is a typical layout for the voice over IP configuration in bring your own bandwidth scenario. Firewall presents a hindrance to the voice traffic, and our primary objective of us or any voice carrier would be to direct the traffic in such a way where it does not go through the firewall. Well, by configuring VLANs, which is virtual LANs, on the local area network switch, we are actually able to route the internet traffic into the firewall and back into the LAN by using two different VLANs. Now, VLANs is a layer 2 separation traffic separation, which offers a complete security between different VLANs configured on the same switch. With this, I'm attempting to make a point that such configuration is secure and is considered to be a standard security provision for voice over IP configuration. In this scenario, the IP phones installed on the local area network, it will actually have a different scope of IP address, and the traffic leading to these phones will be completely separate from the traffic that would lead to computers or servers located on the same LAN. Okay, this is very important to understand that this configuration, this recommended configuration, does not present any security infringement. The traffic separation is in a layer 2. Okay, so by removing the voice over IP traffic from the firewall, we are removing the major hindrance and by default improving a voice quality scenario. Okay. Well, the most benefits of such a solution is by manipulating an existing customer equipment, we're not incurring any additional cost, and customer does not have to spend any money on the hardware. There's a small configuration fee that we charge in such cases, but the fee is fairly insignificant, and we never saw a resistance against such charges, because as a result, customer, in fact, is achieving a high quality of service. We have to stay clear to communicate this to the customer, which And such steps do help us throughout the sales process to keep the customer informed of how prudent we're actually doing our work. Now, we also offer SNMP monitoring to every customer that has our voice over IP service. So if the customer existed on our managed circuit, which is not a part of this presentation, but in those cases, the monitoring would come included with the circuit. In this case, the monitoring comes separately, but we strongly encourage customers to subscribe to it. And again, it's fairly inexpensive because this would allow us to manage an ongoing quality of service and to actually supervise what in fact is happening on a customer edge device. In case of any VoIP hiccup or a customer complaint, we can always go back, look at our monitoring systems, and see clearly, has there been a hiccup? What was the reason for it? Has there been excessive bandwidth use? Perhaps we should apply some additional techniques to improve this. Without having this monitoring system in place, troubleshooting issues with the customer become a little bit difficult, where we would not have enough information. However, if we inform customer of such a situation ahead of time, we trying to, play an open book type approach where customer is aware of all the particulars of their configuration and has all the options before him to be able to make a correct decision. And now is perhaps the most popular configuration and the most frequently used in the case of bring your own bandwidth. This is a configuration when none of the switch, firewall, or routers are managed, or none of them are at least accessible by us. Well, over the course of doing this for a number of years, as we've actually developed a solution. We are using a network appliance and replacing that network appliance in behind the customer's firewall on a LAN side of the firewall. This is a managed by vocal appliance. We would need at least one static IP address, so we would be able to connect a management system to this appliance. Now, this appliance really does two things. It applies a QoS configuration to the traffic that's passing through it, to the outbound, traffic passing through it. And it applies a rate limiting configuration for the inbound traffic. As I'm sure listeners already know, one of the larger problems into managing a quality of voice is congestion that occurs on an inbound where the traffic is coming in from the internet. And if there is no device on a customer premise, they can make any type of separation or can apply any kind of rate limiting to the data stream, then the excessive data stream will jam the voice network. The customer will experience the poor quality of calls, may experience disconnected calls, and at the end will be unhappy with the solution and return. By putting this device in place, we are doing everything that's possible under the scenario where we do not have any of the equipment, managed and any of the equipment available to us for an additional configuration. This gives us at least a managed edge where we can at least provide most of the techniques available under such circumstances and hoping to, of course, for the best possible outcome. About 99% of deployments of this nature are successful. We did come across one or two unhappy customers where it did not offer them absolute pristine quality and there were some minimal infringements that they were not happy with. But we saw this in only two cases to what's known to me, where the customer on a bring your own bandwidth with our managed device in place actually complained at the quality of service. Okay, one of the important things to know, there's obviously different customers use different types of bandwidth. Some use fairly fast cable and Fios speeds. Others use, very slow DSLs and as such. The device that we offer to deploy on-site, our managed device, scales in accordance to the bandwidth that the customer uses. It's being offered as a managed device only. It's not available for sale. However, it can accommodate just about any type of customer bandwidth. so we can scale it accordingly. Now, another important thing is this device gives us an ability to right away have some kind of preview into the customer's traffic. This technique becomes extremely essential when troubleshooting the customers and when the customer issues a complaint. Without having any sort of monitoring, it would be practically impossible for our engineers to make any steps to rectify the solution. Basically boil down to a customer service call, which is not what the customer is looking for. So only with the presence of such devices, we can actually assure customers that our voice works, and if we can at least diagnose of what events do take place, allowing us to make further improvements. And of course, during the sales process, by placing a managed device on customer prem, we also saw a very rather smooth sales process. The customer does like, and in our experience, we saw this time and time again, where any presence of a managed device would actually build the customer's assurance in the fact that the solution will work for them and will produce the needed quality. Now, I would like to speak a little bit about how we handle such solutions internally. As throughout the presentation I described, you saw that the different solutions do involve a technical individual participation. And this is exactly where our sales engineering resources stemming from advanced technology groups become so important. We do have an ability to have a sales engineer present on any such configuration. And before account manager actually submits the quotation, the sales engineer does review such a quotation. Now, as far as us developing and recommending the final solution to the customer, we are mostly focused on the quality of service. I mean, every provider in the industry is concerned with the longevity of their customers and would like to have, as great of a period of customer retention. Well, if we do not provide a quality of service to the customer throughout the term of contract, chances are the customer is not going to renew with us. So we are focusing on the quality of service first. Now, obviously, this may suggest that we have to do a number of technical steps and perhaps complicate the installation. Well, this is where we prioritize, and this is where we actually do not fall short on our sales engineering resources and rather provide more complicated configuration in order to actually achieve that customer satisfaction, which is what we aim for. Okay, and then again, the last point to it is that some of the sales process that does not reveal any information to us, we still go forward and offer a quotation, and then we try to speak to the customer as soon as that quotation passes, let's say, budgetary approval or goes to the next step. And here's the few things, a few important things about Vocal IP Networx. We do have over 1,500 IP installations to date. 99% of customer retention is what we believe is the result of our prudent work and time invested for us to designing and implementing customer solutions and a customer premise solution, assuring customer satisfaction. And this is where we see the future for us. This is where we see our differential. Well, thank you very much. Dan, do you have any questions?
Great. Eugene, I appreciate this. Now, you're the fourth presentation that we've had today. We had two other BroadSoft-based providers and one non-BroadSoft provider. And only one other provider actually mentioned a device on the network to help control quality similar to the one that you cited. The earlier one, I guess, was Megapath talked about an EdgeMark edge device. Does the EdgeMark Edgewater device work similarly to the device that you've described?
Well, I would imagine the Edgewater device having the similar techniques and functionalities. The device that we are using is proprietary to us. It runs Linux on the inside. You can think of it as a black box, for the lack of a better word. I mean, it's a network appliance without a name. It's not a black box name, it's just a box without a name. I would imagine techniques that are applied are the same. And again, we are using the full Linux capabilities and everything that's available within Linux 4 with some of our proprietary scripting to accomplish what we need to, which is the quality of service in the upstream and a rate limiting on the downstream, at the basic level.
Great. Now, you said that you have 1,500 IP installations. How many total seats do you have out there? Do you have a feel for that?
I do. Now, 1,500 IP installations are actually divided between the trunks and the hosted seats. So I don't exactly know the precise number, but I know that a year-old statistic, we were at about 4,500 hosted seats. Okay. Now, I'd speculate with, 5,500 to 6,000 perhaps. But again, that's probably only a half of it. The rest of it would be SIP trunks.
Okay, great. All right, well, let me look at my notes real quick. So it sounds like the other major differentiator is while the other presenters really leaned on their networks or their applications, it sounds like you really lead from a sales engineering point of view where you're really pushing the devices onto the customer's prem in advance or during the sales process, so you leave with the customer with a strong sense that you're primarily concerned with the quality of the voice service.
Absolutely, Dan. And over the years of doing this, we see statistically that 99% of the customers' post-sale issues actually come from a LAN side of the equation. This is where in the early days of doing VoIP deployments, we actually were able to identify that and focus and actually develop the solutions in order to address that. The internet in itself and the quality of WAN per se does not statistically, as we see cross-board, does not present as much trouble. So the voice quality really gets impaired into the customer's LAN and into this often insufficient devices placed in customers' LAN, much more so than within the cloud. That is exactly why we're actually focusing on and applying the sales engineering knowledge to develop the proper LAN-based solution.
Great. And you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation that Vocal IP or Advanced Technology Group also provides IT managed services. So if the customer wants you to take over management of the local area network, that's something within the scope of your business?
Absolutely. And we offer it to just about every customer that signs up with us, whether through the agent process or working directly with the customer. Our IT management services and the presence of multiple monitoring systems allow us to actually provide full control of customer servers, customer network devices, customer security if need be. Oftentimes, this actually helps us in customer retention, whereby outsourcing multiple services to us, the customer, as long as we do our job, does not really find any need to look for additional providers.
Great. All right.
This helps our retention.
This is Dan Baldwin. We've been speaking with Eugene Laykhtman of Vocal IP. Eugene, I really appreciate your sharing your BYOB hosted VoIP solution with us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dan.